Hi everybody, this is SWTOR Kamikaze. I'm on my Shadow and I'll be going over the Serenity spec. I'll be going over things to note from the discipline path. However, I will not be going over everything, so I highly recommend you go and read it through everything, as it will potentially help you find your own basic rotation that will start going towards your own playstyle. I will be going over my utility points, which again I recommend you read over everything and be able to find your own spec that will match your own playstyle as well. Of course, I will be going over a basic rotation, and at the end of the video I will be going over some player tips. So for utility points, I use Intangible Spirit, which for Serenity and Infiltration, it reduces the damage taken from area attacks by 30%. Prior to the recent update, it was the same as Kinetic Combat, where all specs had reduction to all damage taken while stunned by 30%. I also use Lambast, which increases the damage done by running blow by 25%. However, if you don't like that, you could always use Celerity, which reduces the cooldown of Mind Snap by 2 seconds, Force of Will by 30 seconds, and Force Speed by 5 seconds. You could also use Snaring Strike, which Double Strike, Clairvoyant Strike, and Whirling Blow will reduce the move speed of the targets they damage by 30% for 6 seconds. Under Masterful, I use Nerve Wracking, where target is controlled by your spinning strike or force stun, take 5% more damage from all sources. I also use Kinetic Acceleration, where activating Project, Kinetic Blast, or Squelch increase your movement speed by 50% for 9 seconds, and the effect can occur more than once every 18 seconds. Under Heroic, I personally use Sturdiness, which activating Deflection grants 6 seconds of immunity to stun, sleep, lift, and incapacitating effects. I also use Shadowy Veil. When damage breaks your mind maze prematurely, the target will suffer from sapped mind, reducing the damage they deal by 25% for 10 seconds, and in addition to that, for Serenity spec, increases your armor rating by 30%. For things to substitute for both Masterful and Heroic, as I forgot to mention substitutes up here, for Masterful, you could always use Fade, which reduces the cooldown of Force Cloak by 45 seconds and extends its duration by 5 seconds. Or, if you want, you can use Misdirection, which increases move speed by 15% and increases your stealth level by 10. And under Heroic, you always use Containment. If your Force Lift breaks early from damage, the target is stunned for 2 seconds, and Force Lift activates instantly. This would be providing you with a third stun, essentially. Under Legendary, I use Restorative Shade, which, when entering stealth from Force Cloak, you generate a stack of Restorative Shade and heal for 4% of your maximum health every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. And the stack will last for 6 seconds. When stealth is broken, each stack of Restorative Shade will heal you for 4% of your health. I also use Avenging Grip, where Deflection grants Avenging Grip, reflecting 50% of all direct single target tech and force damage back at the attacker. It will last for 12 seconds and does not absorb incoming damage. If you want, you could always use Martial Prowess, where Serenity Strike will immobilize its target for 2 seconds. And in addition, any successful use of Mind Maze will grant Martial Prowess, increasing the crit chance of your next direct attack by 100%, and the effect will last for 20 seconds. And you can also use One with the Shadows, where Shadow Stride can be used while immobilized and purges movement impairing effects when used. In addition, your Force Speed will cause you to absorb 60% of all incoming damage for the duration of Force Speed. And Stalker Swiftness. Shadow Stride will allow your next spinning strike to be used on any target, regardless of remaining health. The effect will last for 10 seconds, and in addition, if your target of your Shadow Stride is killed within 10 seconds of using Shadow Stride, the cooldown will be reset. So, things to note: your Whirling Blow will spread periodic breach and sever force effects as long as it damages the target with those effects on it. Force Imbalance will cause overwhelm on the target for 45 seconds, which increases the damage the target takes by AoE damage by 10%. Melee damage on targets affected by Force Breach and your Shadow Stride both will cause Squelch to cost nothing, and it will finish the cooldown of Squelch as well. Force Imbalance will also cause your next 15 damage over time abilities to have an increase of 15% damage, and the effect will last for 30 seconds. All of your damage over time effects will have a 30% chance to finish the cooldown of your spinning strike, and allowed to be usable regardless of the target's current HP percentage. So, as a basic rotation, I personally have a set for Force Imbalance, followed by Squelch, Force Breach, Sever Force, Whirling Blow, Double Strike, Serenity Strike, and Spinning Strike. So, if we wanted, we can start off with Shadow Stride to go straight up to our target, followed by using Force Imbalance, Squelch, Force Breach, Sever Force, Whirling Blow, Double Strike, Serenity Strike, but its point, Spinning Strike is procced. And same with Squelch, but however I'm restarting with Force Imbalance and going through the rotation again. And then once more. In some cases, you might have to watch and be wary of your energy down here, especially since Force Imbalance does take a lot of energy to use. Yeah, by about roughly the third or fourth time through the rotation, your energy is depleted. So in a lot of cases, for some low-level players out there, be wary of your energy as you're leveling up, and find a way to control the force. Have your force control. Anyway, that's basic rotation of Serenity for you guys. For player tips, it's going to be in Legacy, which is going to be your Y button. And under Global Unlocks and Other, first will be the alignment, where I highly recommend that you have at least one character that caps out the light alignment. The reason for this is you'll have an ability unlocked called Unity, where it requires your companion to be out with you in order to use it, but when you are able to use it, both you and your companion will have a 50% reduction to all damage for 15 seconds. Under ship unlocks, is you do not need anything. You absolutely do not need anything on here, as everything is on the fleet. However, if you are like me and you like your privacy for using any training dummies instead of out and on the fleet for the public ones, I would recommend you unlock it from the ship for operations training dummy as well as your Warzone training dummies. Under convenience, I recommend you max out the Legacy Fleet Pass, max out Legacy Travel, and if you decide to get the personal starship transport, which I'll go over here in a moment, I would recommend maxing out the improved priority transport personal starship as well, because that will cause your quick travel, your personal starship transport, and your emergency fleet pass. All three will have 0 cooldown, and you will be able to port around all day for God knows what reason. I also recommend you get tactical markers, which is extremely helpful if you are in charge of the operation and flashpoints for your group, because you're able to mark where you would like each of the roles prior to boss fights, and hopefully the fight will go a lot smoother for you guys. I also recommend getting improved mounting, where you're able to mount while moving. I find it addicting and extremely fun. I'd rather be able to keep moving instead of taking 2 extra seconds to stop, mount, and start moving again. Under character perks and advancement, I recommend that you get whatever you're going to focus on. For Warzone, Flashpoint, Class Mission, which Class Mission goes fantastic hand in hand with exploration. I also recommend under travel, like I mentioned earlier, the personal starship, priority transport. The reason for this is, let's say you're focusing on your class storyline, and you are in the middle of nowhere on a planet because you were doing the heroic missions on the planet, and the storyline tells you to go to your personal starship to continue on the storyline quest. Well, I would recommend getting this so that way you can just click on it and go straight to your personal starship. That way you're not having to run to the nearest flight path and take the speeder to the spaceport. Before I go to convenience here, I also recommend that you get the side planets such as CZ-198 and Black Hole for priority transports. That way, if you don't know where they are on the galactic map, or you just keep forgetting where they're at, you can click on the transport and go straight to the planet for those heroic missions. Or if you like going to the flashpoints in person like me, you're able to click on them and go to do the flashpoint. Under convenience, I recommend getting all of them eventually. However, to start off with, I would like to recommend you get the field repair droid. That way you are able to sell and repair anywhere, even in the middle of ops after a rough boss fight. I also recommend that you get the field respec in case you have to tank, or if you are Sork, for example, or Sage. You're able to go from DPS to healer in case you have your tank or healer decides to drop group, and you're able to step up and take those roles and keep the group moving. Under companion, I recommend you max out Legacy of Promptness. That way, it's a reduced time taken to give gifts to your companions by a total of 60%, which is really 20% per level. And it'll take the time it takes to give gifts to your companion from the 3 seconds down to roughly 1.6 seconds per gift. I also recommend the maxed out Legacy of Altruism, which is 10 per level, roughly 30% total, which increases the amount of companion influence gained from those companion gifts by 10% per level. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys. I welcome you to playing Serenity Shadow, and I wish you all the best of luck.